This morning I was looking at the weather channel like I normally do when I woke up, and all of a sudden I got a 80% chance of there being a thunderstorm here in 2 days. I was the whole weather channel situation, it was like there was like a 20% chance of it raining every day for 2 days, for 2 weeks in a row. And it was like the rain percentages were dropping. And then all of a sudden, I take a look at the weather channel this morning, and it says that there's a 80% chance of there being thunderstorms on Tuesday, and today is Sunday. And so here in about 2 days, I got an 80% chance of it raining. And so I was taking a look at that this morning, and this field right here, this one right here, I will be herbiciding this field with fertilizer. And the whole thing about herbiciding a field with fertilizer is that I use Duracor. And there's also another herbicide called Grazon HL. And a 1 gallon jug of Duracor will cover about 6.5-7 acres. Okay, so on the instructions for the bottle, it says to use 20 fluid ounces per acre, and a 1 gallon is 128 fluid ounces. And then it says that I also have to use a minimum of 200 pounds of fertilizer per acre for the herbicide to work properly. And so herbiciding with fertilizer is very easy. And I will, the whole thing about it is like, if you go to the fertilizer yard, like me, when I go to the fertilizer yard and I ask them to mix the herbicide with the fertilizer, they'll just do it for me. They'll coat the fertilizer with herbicide. And then I tell them, hey, I would like to use 250 pounds of fertilizer per acre. And then they will tell me where to have the setting to use 250 pounds per acre, where to put the fertilizer broadcaster, what setting to run the broadcaster at to get 250 pounds of fertilizer per acre. And so at that point, I just get over here with the buggy full of fertilizer that's been coated with herbicide. I put it on the proper setting, and then anywhere that I see weeds, I'm not even too concerned about growing the grass. I'm not too because the whole thing is like the grass. There's grass all over this field, and if I herbicide the weeds, I'll have grass, grow in. This grass, it's got some kind of a branching system. It does grow across the ground with above ground roots. I forget what they call that. I think they call it stolons, but this grass does propagate itself all over the field. And so I'm not concerned about fertilizing the grass. I'm more concerned about herbiciding the weeds, and the herbicide will be put on the fertilizer. So you see what I'm saying? When I fertilize, I herbicide at the same time, and if I kill the weeds, the area where I killed the weeds will have grass grow back, and I'm not concerned about like maximizing the productivity of this field. I only have 23 animals out here. There is zero way, for me to raise all 23 of these animals, even though their average weight is above 500, right? I said, the whole thing about having animals at an average weight of 500, I can feed about 10 animals. I can feed about 3 animals per acre, 4 animals per acre when they're at an average weight of 500 pounds. But when, right now they're probably at an average weight of about, 600. They're probably a bit heavier, maybe even 650, average weight of about 600, something like that. And so they will eat more, but there is still zero way. It's not possible for these animals, for these 23 animals to eat 10 acres of grass, okay? So if I go and I get 2 tonnages of fertilizer, and I put two gallons of Duracor on that 2 tons, and then I utilize that herbicide and that fertilizer, I can effectively cover about 14 acres of land. And so I will herbicide this field, and when I herbicide this field, I will realistically, I only need to even buy one tonnage. 1.5 tons will be fine, but I can't buy 1.5 jugs of herbicide. But that's actually a good point. But I also, going back and forth from the fertilizer yard takes 2 hours a day. Like for me to go over there takes an hour to pick up the fertilizer and to come back. It takes another hour and a half. And then I got to go take the fertilizer bin back. And so I really would like to make the trip. I would really like to get as much as I can done in one trip. And so, I probably will just end up buying maybe even 2.5 tons. I'll have to see. I'll even herbicide my preconditioning field. And the whole thing about the herbicide and the fertilizer is that I'm not concerned about fertilizing the grass. I am, fertilizing the grass, but I really want to get these weeds off of the field. I really want to get these weeds off of the field. I got a lot of little trees all over the place, a lot of the little mesquite trees, a lot of the little honey locust trees all over the place. I really am looking to get rid of those trees and all this sagebrush and all this twig weed and all this stuff. I'm looking to get that stuff off the field. That's my main concern. And so I just bring that's my main focus. And so I just bring the herbicide and the fertilizer out here in the buggy. I set it on the right setting, and then I just drive around in my truck. I just leave the thing on, and I just drive around in my truck. And anywhere that I have weeds, I just drive over it, and it will herbicide and fertilize the field at the same time. And I will have to see how much rain I get on Tuesday. I have to wait until Tuesday morning. The whole thing about a herbicide and the coating the herbicide on the fertilizer, and according to the instructions of the herbicide has to get rain on it. If you are going to use it on fertilizer, the herbicide has to get rain on it within 24 hours for it to work properly. And so I will keep my eyes on the weather channel until Tuesday morning. And if it says it's going to rain Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday evening, I will get out there real early Tuesday morning, and I will go pick up the fertilizer and the herbicide, and then I will get back out here, and I will just drive over my field. Anywhere I see weeds, I will just drive over my field, and I will herbicide and fertilize the field at the same time. And that will grow enough grass for me to feed. I mean, these animals probably are 550, 600 pounds. I could easily feed, 40 of these animals on 15 acres, okay? Easily. 50 animals easily on 15 acres, okay? 14 acres, easily. And so the whole thing, I do have, the weather channel is saying that I got some rain coming in 2 days. And I will keep my eyes on the weather channel, and if the rain percentage goes up or if it stays the same, I will, by Tuesday morning, I will get out to the fertilizer yard. I will pick up the fertilizer. I will pick up the herbicide at the same time, and then I will fertilize and herbicide the field. And I got a little calf over here. But I don't think nothing too wrong with him. He just I don't know if he's just like that, but he's just kind of very slow moving. I think that's just his personality. I think this may just be a very low energy calf. He don't look sick. He's not huffing and puffing. He don't look sick, and but I'm keeping my eyes on him. I think he's just a very low energy calf, very low energy animal, and that's good, right? You don't want a bunch of real wild cattle running around all over the place. It turns into a pain when that happens. And so with the growth of the business, in terms of the growth of the business, what am I looking to achieve with the growth of the business? The big idea right now is effectively sell 5 and buy 15. Okay. When I take a look at the overall, I'm not exactly sure, why or whatever, how I ended up. I'm not gonna say how I ended up. So for a good long while, for several months, I haven't even really considered them. I haven't been concerned about the money. I haven't really even been worried about, because money, it's whatever, okay? I have more important things to think about than how much money do I make, okay? I got more important things to think about. I have had zero concerns about money. I haven't been concerned about money at all, okay? More or less, I haven't been concerned about the money for like the last probably 5 months, okay, 7 months. I haven't been concerned about the money. There are more important things for me to think about than how much money do I make. All right, and I've been working on all this stuff, right? I got all this stuff done, and I got a lot done over the last couple of months. And but recently, I do need to figure out how much money I'm making, because I'm looking to redo my loans. I'm looking to redo my loans, and I need to figure out how much capital I would like to have it in terms of debt. How much capital would I like to have? How much cash flow am I producing? I had to think about these things. And right now, as of today, if I liquidate all of my animals at 800 pounds, I am already sitting on about 25 animals worth of, somewhere around 20 animals worth of positive equity. I already have positive equity. Granted that I liquidate, because here's the thing, my animals here are stable. Okay, my animals are stable. I do have 12 animals on a preconditioning pasture, right? I have 12 animals at a preconditioning facility, but out of those 12 animals, 6 of them are, and realistically it's about 8 of them. All right, 8 of them are pretty much stabilized. I have 4 animals that I would consider at higher risk. Here, in a couple of weeks when all the animals look like they're doing okay, I have about 4 or 5 animals that I would think are higher risk, but I don't have any animals that are sick right now. I don't have any animals that are, ill. I don't have any animals that, I've restarted, metaphylaxis. I restarted metaphylaxis, and that had a lot of positive effects. My whole thing about utilizing antibiotics and metaphylaxis is, from my experience, if you don't do metaphylaxis, the whole thing about metaphylaxis and a proper diet, I don't even give my animals vaccinations when they get here, because vaccinations do temporarily reduce the immune system of the animal. And there are also, gram-negative bacteria vaccinations that will increase the body temperature of the calf. And I don't want to, give a little 200-pound calf a fever and reduce their immune system when they're on a new pasture for the first time in their life. They're freaking out because their mama's gone, and now they have a fever, and I don't want that to happen, right? And so the only thing that I give my calves when they first get here is a lot of good food. I give them good food and a shot of antibiotics, and that is it. And when the animal has effectively I am completely certain that the animal's doing okay, that is when I vaccinate the animal, right? That is when I vaccinate the animal. And so right now the animals look like they're all more or less doing okay. It takes me about a month and a half to stabilize a set of animals. Realistically, about 2 months, month and a half, 2 months, depends on what condition the animal is in when I first bring them in, et cetera, et cetera. And if I, and my herd right now is effectively stable. Okay, granted that I don't start, my whole thing about making money and using the coins as a representation of how much money I make, and a majority of my money's in pool number 2 and things like this. Granted, if I go and I've spoken about the whole thing about if I had a 30-second conversation with somebody, I can tell where you are financially, I can tell where you are mentally. Effectively, I can tell what's going on more or less. All right, and and a lot of people are just kind of a ding dong. A lot of people are just kind of an idiot. And I'm not saying this to be malicious. Let's just be honest about it. Let's be honest. I am being honest about it, and God knows that I'm not being malicious when I talk about this stuff. God knows that I'm not being a horrible person when I talk about this stuff. I'm not getting a kick out of this. I'm not getting any sort of enjoyment out of this, right? If anything, for the right person, it might be the moment in your life where you are now able to turn yourself around. It might be a positive for you. For the right person, it would be a positive, right? I'm not here to save people. I'm not here to help everybody. I don't care if you died. All right. Do I want you to die? No, I don't want you to die. But I don't care if you died tomorrow. It wouldn't matter to me. All right. If you're watching my channel and you died tomorrow, it wouldn't mean anything to me. Do I want you to die? No, I don't. All right. And so, this whole thing, and this whole thing, and I've spoken about business, the whole idea of business. All right. There are, a few major things that usually gets done with money from a business. A lot of people just end up scraping money off of their business. All right. And if you're in a situation where you're scraping money off of your business is probably not going to get anywhere forever. You may be able to make yourself a living, but that's about all you're going to be able to do. A majority of people end up in a situation where they barely make any money, or they actually go downhill, right? And I've, the whole idea of kicking yourself in the dick. What are some clear indicators that you are kicking yourself in the dick all the time? What are some clear indicators, right? What are some clear indicators that you are kicking yourself in the dick all the time? What's a clear indicator? You give up on your dreams because of $1,000. All right, I can guarantee you, if that's how you live your life, you have not just kicked yourself in the dick once, you've kicked yourself in the dick repeatedly. If you've given up on your dreams because of $1,000, you repeatedly kick yourself in the dick. All right, what's another one? Your biggest trial and tribulation in your life is $2,000 a month. All right, if you're in a situation where $2,000 a month would legitimately solve your problems, and you're sitting there complaining about your worthless trials and tribulations, which nobody cares about. Nobody cares about your trials and tribulations. If you're sitting there and you're like complaining about your trials and tribulations, and then you take a look at it, and $2,000 a month would legitimately save your life, would legitimately solve your problem, that's the indicator that you are repeatedly kicking yourself in the dick. What's another one? What's another one? The only thing you own is a house and a car. All right. If that's the situation you're in, nobody cares about your magical journey. Nobody cares about your worthless adventure. All right. That's a very realistic possibility. You are perpetually kicking yourself in the dick. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on forever. Okay. A lot of people just, if you barely make enough money to get by, you're perpetually kicking yourself in the dick. If you're in the negative, you're perpetually kicking yourself in the dick. There are things that you can do with money that are a positive on the world, right? You don't have to go and sell your soul to the devil for money, right? Money doesn't do anything. It's a piece of paper. This is the big idea. Money does not do anything, right? I mean, it's a piece of paper, all right? You can be a part of something. Even if you don't want to start something yourself, you can go and be a part of something. All right. You can go and be a part of something that you see as a net positive on the world. You don't want to be a net negative. If you're a net negative, you're perpetually kicking yourself in the dick. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on and on. The list goes on forever. All right. There are, a majority, and what are some things, you can do, that would be morally right. Right. I mean, push the world in a positive direction, make your peace with God about it. All right. Make your peace with God about it. Don't sell your soul to the devil. I mean, there are things that you can do that are morally would push the world in a positive direction. Okay. There are many things that you can do. The list of things that you can do to push the world in a positive direction is also a very long list. All right. It's not just a very long list of people kicking themselves in the dick. There are also things that you can do that would morally push the world in the right direction. And that list goes on forever too. Okay. And so, you want to be on, you should really strive to be on the part, you should really strive to be in the good section. All right. You don't want to be in a situation where you're a net negative. You got a bunch of problems. You got nothing to show for it. You complain all the time. You're kind of a worthless loser. Nobody cares about your worthless whatever. You don't want to be on that in that situation. Okay. With everything that I got going on, when I sell these animals, they're all effectively stabilized. Okay. They're all effectively about good to go. They're all effectively stable. I would reasonably anticipate that, these animals, when I liquidate them at 800 pounds, I will effectively have about 20 animals worth of positive equity already. And so, in this situation, when I liquidate my 8 biggest, when I liquidate my 5 biggest animals, I've effectively got my herd situated right now to liquidate 5 animals a month. Okay, I've got my herd situated right now to liquidate 5 animals a month. That's effectively how I set everything up. And and if I sell them at 800 pounds, I will effectively have about 20 animals worth of positive equity as of today. So I'm already sitting on about 80% leverage. Okay, I'm already, granted that my animals hit 800 pounds and then I liquidate. All right, but here's the thing. When I liquidate, right, the whole thing about me liquidating animals is that there are only a couple of major, factors for when I would liquidate an animal, right? If I don't see much of a profit margin that can be made, or if I believe that the appreciation value of the animal has effectively reached a maximum value, or if I actually need the money and I don't need the money. Okay. I'm not, I probably won't ever, knock on wood. I don't want to give myself bad juju. I make a tremendous sum of money. I don't see how I would ever end up in a situation where I would need money. All right. I don't, money is whatever to me. Okay. I make a massive sum of money. I'm not concerned about money. Money is not something that I concern about. Okay. The things that I think about are, what direction is my business going? What should I accomplish this month? What conditioning are my cattle at? That's the kind of stuff that I think about. I don't think about money. I have plenty of money. I'm not concerned about money. All right. I got more important things to think about. But, right now I am thinking about money more because I do have to retake my loans by the end of the year. And I'm taking a look at my balance sheet and figuring out what exactly I got going on and how much leverage do I anticipate that I will take on a monthly basis so that I can, continue to run my business as efficiently as possible. So if I liquidate my animals at 800 pounds, you need to remember that when I liquidate these animals at 800 pounds and I brought them in at 200, then there will be a margin of profit, right? And I will be able to reinvest that money. The big idea is to reinvest all of the money into my business. The whole idea is, if I want to pull money out of my business, there is no reason. And a lot of people end up in this situation, right? A lot of people, like when you see them running a business, it doesn't have to even be a farm. It could be any kind of a business. They pull money off of the business to go and live their magical dream. And this is what I've said. Nobody cares about your magical dream. Okay. And I'm not saying, don't, whatever, I'm not saying be miserable about it. My whole thing is I'm not going to be miserable to be, to do well with money. I'm not going to be miserable about it, but my whole thing is I reinvest all of the money back into my business. And the reason that I do that is because when I reinvest the money back into my business and I purchase tax deductible assets at their equitable evaluation, it's effectively a savings account for me. It's effectively a savings account, right? So now I reinvest all of the money that I made back into my business and I purchased good assets at their value, at their monetary value for the money, right? So now I'm sitting here with the assets and the assets are worth money and they are growing in value, right? And so now that I have the assets, I now have a stable base for me to leverage against. That's the big idea, right? That's the whole idea of investing my money into the business. And when I have a stable foundation to leverage against, then that gives me an opportunity to increase the amount of money that I make on a monthly basis even more. And if I legitimately need money, I have a credit card, and if I genuinely, for whatever reason, I'm telling you, I have never needed more than $35,000. But if I legitimately need more than $35,000, I can either liquidate my animals or take a loan against my assets and just use the money. All right, and and I will even be pulling cash out of my business within 3 months. All right, I have assets. The assets are worth money. They may not be cash, but they are worth money, right? I can take a loan against my assets and use that money if I choose to do so, right? If I legit, but here's the thing. I have a credit card, all right? And even to this day, I have not needed to ever dump money onto a credit card. Not ever. All right, legitimately, the most money that I have, I haven't used hardly, I don't use anything. All right, I'm not concerned about it. I'm not sitting here going, oh my God, if I don't have $5 million cash in the bank, then I'm concerned about it. That's not me. All right, I'm not concerned about it. If I legitimately need money, that's actually a good point. A couple of months ago, I did legitimately need money because I had an opportunity to grow my business to 400 acres, to 375 acres. That's actually a very reasonable time that I actually needed money. And then I did liquidate my animals. I sold my heifers. I sold my biggest heifers, and et cetera, et cetera. I did liquidate assets. So that was one reasonable time that I actually needed money. And I chose to liquidate animals to have access to money was when I had an opportunity to grow my business from 10 acres to 375 acres. That was when I legitimately needed money and I sold animals. But, stuff like that does not happen all the time. It doesn't happen all the time. There's no reason for me to sit around with $5 million in the bank just in case something happens. There's no reason for me to sit around with $50,000 in the bank just in case something happens. If something happens, I can sell some animals. I have a credit card. I'm not concerned about it. All right. But I will be pulling some money out of my business in about 3 months. Just because I am already starting to have a difficult time. Here's the thing. Even today, when I sell my 5 animals, my whole thing about the money that I make on a monthly basis, pool number 3, that money, I consider it all to be my money under one circumstance, right? What is that circumstance? That circumstance is if I am less than 80% leveraged against my balance sheet. If I have less than 80% leverage on my balance sheet, then I consider all of the money that I make in pool number 3 to be my money. I consider all of it to be my money. All right, I don't worry about, oh my God, I sold 5 animals and I bought 10, but I owe the bank 2. So I don't concern myself with that. As long as my balance sheet is under an 80% leverage, I'm not concerned about it, because if it came down to it, I could sell the animals that the bank has lent me money for, and I could just pay the bank back. All right, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. All right. You know, even if all of the animals that the bank had lent me money for dropped dead instantaneously, I could use my money to pay the bank back, and I would still have 20% left over. I don't lose sleep over it. I don't lose sleep over it. Nothing. Okay. I didn't sell my soul to the devil. All right. If it, I don't lose sleep over it. I'm completely okay with it. I'm not concerned about it. Okay. And so, granted that condition has been met, I am less than 80% leveraged on my balance sheet, I consider all of the money that I made in pool number 3 to be my money. I don't worry about paying the bank back 2 animals worth of money. You know, oh my God, I sold 5 animals, but whatever. I owe the bank 2 animals worth of money, and I got 10 animals worth of money, so I'm going to put 2 animals worth of money aside. I don't worry about it. I just invest all 10 animals worth of money. All right, I invest all 10 animals worth of money, and realistically, when I do that, it will actually reduce the amount of leverage that I have on my balance sheet, right? You know, and so I will actually expand the size of my herd, because the animals that I sold had a margin of profit on them, right? And I realized that gain when I sold the animal, and now I made a profit, and I reinvest that back into my business, right? And so, I invest all of the money. I don't consider, I don't concern myself with paying the bank 2 animals worth of, oh my God, I sold 5 animals and I owe the bank 2 animals worth of money, and I got 10 animals, and so I'm not going to buy 10 and I'm only going to buy 8. I don't worry about it. Okay. Granted that my balance sheet is under 80% leveraged. And in this situation, because of where I am right now, and if I sell my 5 animals and I buy 10, and granted that I sell all of my animals at 800 pounds, I am already in the net positive. I'm already in the net positive. Maybe, I may only be 50% leveraged. If my animals are stable, they're doing okay. They're doing well. They're gaining properly. Here in about 2 days, I'll be growing grass, and I would reasonably be growing grass for like the next 3-4 months at least, 2-3 months, and then it'll be winter time, and then I'll have another 2-3 months where I'm growing grass again, and 7 to 8 months out of the year I'm growing grass, and I can actually grow enough grass to feed animals to a commercial standard for very, very, very little cost. I don't even need any equipment. Okay, if I have a truck, I'm effectively good to go. And so that's it. And so, I don't need a bunch of equipment or anything. But, there are, but that's my whole thing about it. And right now, when I sell my animals at 800 pounds, if I'm net positive 20 animals worth of money, that would put my balance sheet at like a 50 or 40% leverage. I would be like 40-50% leveraged. And so I do need to redo my loans. And right now, what I'm effectively thinking is I sell 5 and I buy 15. I need to sell 5 and I buy 15. I may even need to sell 5 and buy 20. Because if I sell 5 and I buy 10 and my balance sheet is less than 80% leveraged, then I consider all 10 of those animals to be my money. And if I leverage against 5 of them, then I'm only leveraging against 50%. And if my balance sheet is already at a 50% leverage and I'm only taking 50% leverage, the amount of leverage on my balance sheet is going to go even lower. Right? And this is also what I mean by it's already becoming difficult for me to reinvest just the money that I make. I may even need to end up, selling 5 and buying 20, but I will have to go to the bank. I will be going to the bank and retaking my loans. And once I have retaken my loans, when the amount of money that I make on a monthly basis exceeds $50,000, I will look into taking about 1 month worth of money out of my business. And realistically, I will 1 month worth of money that my business makes when I okay, but here, think about this. If I sell 5 and I buy 15. Let's say I sell 5 and I buy 20. Let's just say sell 5 and buy 15. Farmer Howard has taken a look at his balance sheet and has determined that his balance sheet is less than 80% leveraged, right? And so he has decided to leverage against his earnings, and when he sells 5 animals, he will buy 15, right? And so when he sells 5 and buys 15, and let's say that these 15 animals, how long does it take for Farmer Howard to stabilize a new set of animals when he brings them in at 200 pounds, right? 2 months, right? It takes me 2 months to stabilize these animals. So if Farmer Howard is selling 5 animals on a monthly basis, 2 months down the line, Farmer Howard would have sold 10 animals and bought 30, right? 30 animals. He would have sold 10 and bought 30, okay? And 30 animals will effectively, 15 animals and then another 15, right? And even when I do that, the amount of leverage that I have on my balance sheet is actually going to go downwards. The amount of leverage that I have on my balance sheet will go lower. Even though I'm still taking a loan for 5 animals, it will still go lower. And it will progressively go lower on a monthly basis because pool number 2 will be accumulating unrealized gains. 15 animals will produce me 3 pennies on a monthly basis. So if I bring home 15 animals and those 15 animals produce me 3 pennies, 1 month later, those 15 animals have produced me another 3 pennies, then I now have 6 pennies. And then I have another set of animals that is another 3 pennies. And then I have another set of animals that I just brought in. And those 45 animals that I have, granted that they are not, granted that my balance sheet is less than 80% leveraged, those 45 animals also belong to me. And then I have another 4 set of animals in front of them, right? A nickel, right? And those animals are producing me, those 4 animals are each producing, those 4 set of animals are all producing me an extra penny on a monthly basis as well. Granted that my balance sheet is under 80% leveraged, I would consider all of the animals to be mine. I don't worry about paying the bank back. If it comes down to it, if the bank tells me that they need their money back, I can just sell the investment that the bank has given me and pay the bank back. Even if all of the animals that the bank has lent me money for drop dead instantaneously, I can pay the bank back with the money that I have, and I would still have 20% left over. All right, I don't concern myself with paying the bank back. I pay the bank interest. If the bank tells me that they want all their money back, I will pay the bank all of their money back, and I would still have my equity. I would just sell the animals that the bank lent me money for, and I would pay the bank back. All right, and so that's the big idea. All right, that's how I run my business. Okay, and so. Well, let's think about it. And I'll also have to start leveraging against pool number 2. And let's say that I go and I sell 5 and I buy 15, right? And my balance sheet is 50% leveraged, under 80% leveraged. It's 50% leveraged. And if I sell 5 and I buy 15, just doing that will still reduce the amount of debt that I have. My debt will still be going downwards because the rest of my assets will still be going up in value, producing me an unrealized gain. The amount of leverage that I have moves downwards on a daily basis. And this is also what I mean by if something really does happen and the amount of leverage that I have on my balance sheet exceeds 80%, then I can just wait because my assets will continue to grow in value, right? I can just wait. But right now, I'm not having that problem. Right now, it's the complete opposite. The amount of leverage that I have is already below 80% and it's falling on a daily basis. The amount of leverage that I have is going downwards on a daily basis. Starting next month, I will start liquidating cattle. And when I liquidate these cattle, I reasonably anticipate that they will hit the scale at about 800 pounds and there will be a significant profit margin on each animal. All right, my problem right now is that I am making a drastic sum of money. My problem right now is not that I am making too little money. If anything, my problem is that I am making a lot of money. All right. And I am having to reinvest all of this capital. All right. And, you know, the whole thing with it, if I sell 5 and I buy 15, and 2 months down the line, let's say I do that, right? Right now I have effectively 5 animals that are effectively going to be ready to go every single month for the next 7 months, right? And let's say that I, for the next 2 months, I sell 5 and I buy 15. Then how many pennies worth of unrealized gain, not even including, you know, but let's include, you know, because right now the amount of leverage that I have on my balance sheet is so low, and it's falling every single day that goes by, every single moment that goes by. The amount of leverage that I have on my balance sheet is continuing to fall because my animals are continuing to gain value. So, you know, and already it's, you know, if I already have, you know, I only have 35 animals. And I already anticipate that I will, even with just these 35 animals, I will have about 20 animals worth of net positive equity if I just raised these animals to 800 pounds and sold them. All right, I would have about 20 animals worth of net positive equity. You know, wait, it wouldn't be 20, it'd be 20 big ones. Not 20 small ones. It'd be 20 big ones. It wouldn't be 20 small. And this is also what I mean by it is, you know, the amount of leverage that I have. If I sell my animals and it wouldn't be 20 small ones. It'd be 40 small ones or 20 big ones. That's how much positive equity I have. More than half of my animals are positive equity right now. Granted that I sell them at 800 pounds. You know, and why would I go and sell my smallest animal, right? And, you know, granted that I don't like start doing drugs or gamble my money away or whatever, you know, develop a major spending problem. You know, granted that I just stay the course. All right, you know, I will end up with about 20 big animals worth of positive equity here in about, you know, with granted, you know, but here's the thing. You know, that would be if I just raised these animals and liquidated them at 800. But what is realistically going to happen, right? When I sell, you know, I got 5 animals for sale next month, 5 animals for sale the month after that, 5 animals for sale the month after that, right? And when I sell these 5 animals, even if I buy 15 animals, if I sell 5 and I buy 15, 10 animals, you know, are effectively my money. I effectively just reinvested my earnings to buy 10, and I took a loan for 5 from the bank. So in this situation, the amount of leverage that I have on my balance sheet would still continue to go downwards. I would not be pushing the amount of debt that I have on my balance sheet upwards. And this is the whole thing, you know, within about 3 months, I will probably pull about $100,000 off of my business and invest the leverage instead of you know, because I will already have a strong foundation of money. I will already have a strong foundation of equity to leverage against, so I wouldn't be concerned about it. And so I will probably pull about $100,000 off of my business here in about 3 months and just invest with leverage and not invest with capital. Not invest with my own money to you know, to increase my equity stake. And so, you know, the thing, you know, but let's think about this, right? If I sell 5 and I buy 15, you know, the 10 animals that I bought from selling my 5 animals, I would consider all of that money because the amount of leverage that I have is so low. So I sold 10, or I sold 5 and I bought 15. 2 months down the line, when those animals are stabilized, how many pennies would those animals have generated? They would have generated 6, right? 2 months down the line, they would have generated 6 pennies. Those 15 and 5 animals effectively produce me, a nickel produces me a penny, you know, once a month. And so, you know, 2 months down the line, I would have 6 pennies there, right? And then I would also have 15 animals worth, you know, 15 cents, you know, a dime and a nickel. That's my money. That's my equity. That's my money. I'm not, you know, that's my money. The amount of leverage on my balance sheet is under 50%. So I just consider all that to be my money. So those 15 animals are mine. I would have another set of animals behind them, 15 animals behind them. That would all be mine. The 3 animals, the three, you know, pennies that they produce, that would all be mine too. And then I would have another 15 animals behind them. So add it all up. How much is that? It's 45 plus 6 plus 3. So what would that be? 45 plus 6 plus 3. 6 plus 3 is 9, and 45. So it'd be 54. And that would just be the animals that I brought home in the last 2 months, right? Or that would just be 2 months worth of animals, right? I would still have the animals that are 400 pounds. I would still have, or excuse me, I would still have the animals that are 500 pounds. I would still have the animals that are 600 pounds. I would still have the animals that are 700 pounds. And I would still have the animals that are 800 pounds. And the 800 pounders would be in pool number 3, have 6 pennies on them, and I would be liquidating them, right? And having a check in my hand, right? And then it just pushes the money into the front end of the cattle herd, right? When I reinvest the money. All right, I mean, it's a lot of money. I mean, okay, let's not say it's a lot of money. How much money is that? So it'd be 5 plus 6, 5 plus 5, 5 plus 4. So, so it'd be, okay, so 200, 300, 400. So 500, 600, 700, 800. So it would be 8 plus 6, or it'd be 5 plus 6, 5 plus 5. So 5 plus 6, 5 plus 5, 5 plus 4, and 5 plus 3. So 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11. 8 plus 11 would be 19. 38 plus 54. Plus, 9, right? I don't know how much money, but it's a lot, okay? It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, okay? It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, all right? It's not, and this is also what I mean by the amount of leverage that I have on my balance sheet is going to fall to like 25% in the next 3 months. The amount of leverage that I have on my balance sheet is going to fall to like 25, 30% over the next 3 months. I reasonably anticipate that will happen, and I have a strategy for pulling money out of my business. And effectively, I reasonably anticipate that will happen. And when that happens, I will take a loan and I will invest the loan and I will pull money out of the business. I'll pull about $100,000 out of the business, something like that, $75,000 out of the business. I will hold on to the capital so that I don't increase my equity stake in my balance sheet, and I will invest with the debt so that I can increase the amount of leverage that I have on my balance sheet. But I may legitimately have to do that again the next month. All right, and you also need to consider the fact that once the animals are stable, I would be willing to liquidate against the unrealized gain as well. So if I have a set of 15 animals and it's been 2 months and they've produced me 6 pennies, and I would be willing to go to the bank and take a loan for another 5 animals to leverage against those 6 pennies. So I wouldn't be selling 5 and be buying 20. I wouldn't be selling 5 and be buying 15. I'd be selling 5 and like buying 25. And then it'd be 30, and because the pool number 2 is my largest source of money. This is something that I did not fully understand until recently, but pool number 2 has a drastic amount of money in it. And granted that I liquidate my animals at 800 pounds, I will already end up with like 20 animals, 20 big animals, maybe 25 or 20, 25, something like that, big animals worth of money. Positive equity already, even to this day. Even if all I did was run these animals and sell them at 800, and that was all I did, I would end up with like 20 big animals worth of money. All right, and this is also, and reasonably, when I take a look at it, within the next 3 months, the amount of leverage that I have on my balance sheet will fall so low that I will have to invest such a large amount of capital that I probably won't be able to do it. And at that point, I will pull money out of the business. And I may legitimately have to pull money out of the business 2 or 3 times. And, and if I do that and I invest debt and I pull money out of my business 2 or 3 times and I invest with the debt to increase the amount of leverage that I have on my balance sheet, if I do that, I may legitimately end up with like 253, like 250, it'll be like $250,000 within, by March of next year, cash, liquid. All right, and but this is also what I mean by the pools of money will all get bigger at the same time. I don't worry about money. The amount of money that I make is so astronomically large. I mean, I don't even worry about money. I don't even think about it really. Like right now I'm thinking about it because I need to redo my loans, but I think about other things. I don't even concern myself. I don't really even, why would I sit here and think about, how much money I make on a daily basis? It's not going to do anything, right? I'm more focused on what are my cattle eating, what are the weather conditions, what does the water look like, what direction is my business heading, what should I get done this week? What do I need to get done this month? That's the kind of stuff that I think about. Money's already whatever to me. All right, but it is what it is. All right, I am set to make an astronomical sum of money, astronomical, like hundreds of thousands of dollars left over. All right, I'm being completely honest about it. All right, I'm being completely straightforward about it, and I will be pulling money out of my business. I would reasonably anticipate that I start pulling money out of my business, and I will only pull money out of the business if I am able to pull money out of the business without slowing my business down. That's the only reason that I would pull money out of the business. All right, is if I can pull money out of the business, the only time I will pull money out of the business is if it does not negatively affect my business. My business is my top priority other than God. God is my number one priority, and then there is my business. All right, that's how my life is. So that's what my life is. And I will not pull money out of my business if it negatively affects my business. That's the golden rule.